It happens the moment the lock turns, a sharp click that separates two worlds. On one side is noise, traffic, messages, people, and endless demands. On the other side is your home, the familiar smell, the quiet, the stillness. In that moment, your shoulders relax, your jaw loosens, and you breathe out a relief you didn't know you were holding. The mask comes off. You are not lonely. You are happily, completely alone. To others, staying home might look lazy or boring. Friends joke, colleagues worry, and society tells us life happens out there. But home is more than a place to sleep or store things. It's where you feel whole again. For those who love quiet, canceled plans and rainy days aren't disappointments. They are a gift. Today, we'll explore the mindset of people who love staying home, showing why enjoying your own company is not a flaw, but a way your brain thrives. Let's talk about the cost of being outside. For the person who loves home, navigating the external world isn't just about logistics, it's about energy management. When you are out in the world, at the office, at a dinner, even at a grocery store, you are doing something that psychology calls high monitor self-regulation. You are constantly, subconsciously scanning. You are reading the micro expressions on people's faces. You are filtering the background noise of the traffic, the music, the chatter. You are adjusting your posture, your tone of voice, your reactions to fit the social contract of the moment. To an extrovert or someone with a higher threshold for stimulation, this happens automatically. It's like breathing. It costs them almost nothing. In fact, it energizes them. They feed on the friction of social contact. But for you, you are running a high-definition, uncompressed data stream of reality. You aren't just hanging out, you are processing. You are feeling the energy of the room. You are noticing the tension between two people in the corner. You are absorbing the fluorescent lights. Your brain is taking in 100% of the input, 100% of the time. And this is expensive, metabolically, psychologically expensive. This is why, after a day of being on, you don't just feel tired. You feel fragmented. You feel like a phone with 2% battery and 40 apps open in the background. You feel a specific kind of irritability that isn't about anger. It's about sensory overload. You start to lose your words. You start to zone out. Your body is physically present, but your mind is already trying to drive home. This is the performance, and the performance is exhausting. When you finally get home, close the door, and maybe change into clothes that don't pinch or restrict, what you are actually doing is ending the performance. You are stepping off the stage. In the safety of your home, you don't have to monitor your facial expressions. You don't have to worry if you're being entertaining enough, or smart enough, or loud enough. You don't have to fill the silence. At home, silence is not an awkward gap in conversation. It is a texture. It is a luxury. But because this internal experience is invisible to others, they misinterpret your need for recovery. They say, you're being antisocial. They say, you're shrinking your world. They say, you need to push yourself out of your comfort zone. And because you hear this enough times, you start to believe it. You look at your friends who can go from a full day of work straight to happy hour and then to a late dinner and wake up fresh the next day, and you think, what is wrong with me? Why is my battery so small? Why can't I just be normal? You might even force yourself to go out when every cell in your body is screaming, no. You put on the outfit, you put on the smile, you go to the event, and you spend the entire time checking your watch, calculating the polite minimum amount of time you have to stay before you can escape. You are physically there, but you are ghosting the experience. This is the tragedy of the misunderstood homebody. You spend so much energy trying to be the person the world wants you to be that you have nothing left for the person you actually are. So, what is actually happening here? Is it depression? Is it social anxiety? Is it agoraphobia? While those are real conditions that can overlap, the pure love of staying home is usually something else entirely. It is a biological distinction in how your nervous system handles a neurotransmitter called dopamine. We often hear dopamine described as the pleasure chemical, but that's a simplification. Dopamine is the chemical of pursuit. It is the chemical of more. It drives us to seek external rewards: food, sex, novelty, social status, noise, excitement. In the mid-20th century, personality psychologists and later neuroscientists began to map out a fundamental difference in how human brains react to dopamine. The extroverted nervous system has a high threshold for dopamine stimulation. To feel good, to feel alive, To feel like they are functioning, they need a lot of it. They need the loud music, they need the risk, they need the constant flow of new faces. When they are in a low stimulation environment, like a quiet room alone, their brain essentially falls asleep. They feel understimulated, bored, and restless. They go out to charge their battery because their internal generator needs external fuel. But your nervous system? You are likely on the other end of the spectrum. You have a low threshold for dopamine stimulation. You don't need a flood of it to feel satisfied. A trickle is enough. For you, a quiet conversation is stimulating. A book is stimulating. A complex thought is stimulating. When you are thrown into a high-intensity environment, a loud club, a chaotic office, a crowded party, you aren't just getting enough dopamine, you are drowning in it. Your system gets flooded. And when the brain is flooded with too much stimulation, it doesn't feel like pleasure. It feels like anxiety. It feels like panic. It feels like you are vibrating out of your skin. To cope with this flood, your brain triggers a shutdown response. You withdraw. You go quiet. You get the glaze over your eyes. This isn't you being rude. This is your brain's circuit breaker flipping to prevent a meltdown. Instead of dopamine, your system prefers a different neurotransmitter pathway, one dominated by acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is linked to focus, internal reflection, memory, and deep thought. It is the chemical of calm. It feels good, but it's a different kind of good. It's not the buzz of a roller coaster, it's the satisfaction of solving a puzzle or reading a profound sentence or watching rain fall against a window. This is the hidden pattern: introverted sensory processing. You aren't boring. You are biologically wired for depth rather than breadth. You are wired for maintenance rather than acquisition. The world is designed for the dopamine addict. It is designed to be loud, fast, and bright. It is designed to grab your attention and sell it. But your brain views that world as a threat to your equilibrium. When you crave home, you aren't hiding. You are instinctively seeking an environment where you can control the inputs. At home, you control the lighting. At home, you control the volume. At home, you control the temperature. At home, you control the social demands. In this controlled environment, your nervous system can finally switch from alert mode, sympathetic nervous system, to rest and digest mode, parasympathetic nervous system. This is the only state in which your body can repair itself. This is the only state in which your brain can consolidate memory and process emotion. So when you say, "I just want to go home," you aren't saying, "I hate people." You are saying, "I need to regulate my biology." Let's expand this, because if we stop at "it's just biology," we miss the psychological richness of the homebody's inner life. There is a concept in psychology called the reticular activating system, ERAS. This is a bundle of nerves at your brainstem that acts as a filter for the massive amount of information coming at you every second. It decides what you notice and what you ignore. For the person who loves home, this filter is often more porous. You let more in. This is what makes many homebodies highly sensitive people. You notice the hum of the refrigerator. You notice the tag scratching the back of your neck. You notice the slight change in a friend's tone that indicates they are annoyed. Because you absorb so much detail, your internal world is incredibly rich. You don't need to go skydiving to feel something intense. You can feel something intense just by listening to a piece of music in a dark room. You don't need to travel to 10 countries to understand the human condition. You can understand it by reading a single great novel. This is the superpower that comes with the cost. Your capacity for solitude is actually a capacity for generative processing. Think about the history of human innovation. While the extroverts were out exploring new territories and building trade routes, vital work, absolutely, the introverts were at home. They were in the monastery copying texts. They were in the laboratory isolating penicillin. They were in the study writing the philosophy that would shape nations. Isaac Newton, Emily Dickinson, Albert Einstein, Marcel Proust. These were people who not only preferred solitude, they required it. They understood that to pull something profound from the depths of the mind, you need silence. You need an environment where the water is still enough to see the bottom. When you are at home, you are engaging in this ancient tradition. You are tending to your own garden. But here is where the damage happens. We are raised in a society that doesn't value the garden. It values the marketplace. We are raised in a culture of personality rather than a culture of character. In a culture of personality, what matters is how you project. Charisma, loudness, visibility, these are the currencies of success. The quiet person is viewed as suspicious. Why are they so quiet? What are they thinking? If you grew up as a quiet child, you likely internalized this suspicion. You were told to speak up. You were graded on class participation. You were dragged to play dates you didn't want. You learned that your natural state, your happy, quiet, observant state, was a problem to be solved by adults. And this brings us to the developmental wound. We need to talk about the child you were because the guilt you feel on a Friday night at age 30 didn't start at age 30. It started at age 6. If you are someone who finds sanctuary in solitude, you were likely a child who was perfectly happy playing alone. You could spend hours in your room, building worlds, reading, drawing, or just staring at the ceiling and thinking. You weren't lonely. You were occupied. Your internal world was vivid, loud, and colorful. You didn't need the external world to entertain you because you were entertaining yourself. But the adults around you, they likely didn't see contentment. They saw a problem. In developmental psychology, we talk about goodness of fit, how well a child's temperament matches their environment. If you were a quiet, sensitive child born into a loud, extroverted family or placed in a chaotic school system, there was a poor fit. You heard the one question that haunts every introvert over and over again. Why are you so quiet? Think about the violence of that question. It implies that quiet is a deviation from the norm. It implies that your natural state is an absence of something, rather than a presence of something else. You were probably pushed. Go play with the other kids. Don't be shy. Speak up. Parents, acting out of love but driven by anxiety, worried that your solitude meant you were depressed or socially inept. They projected their fear of isolation onto your joy of solitude. So, very early on, you learned a dangerous lesson. My comfort is wrong. To be good, I must be out there. To be safe, I must perform. You learned to override your own nervous system. You learned that when your body said stop, you had to say go. You learned that the fatigue you felt after a birthday party wasn't valid, so you hid it. You faked the smile. You faked the energy. This was the birth of the mask. The mask is the persona you constructed to survive in a world that pathologizes stillness. And you probably got very good at it. Many homebodies are actually excellent at socializing. They can be charming, funny, and engaging. But what people don't see is the cost. They don't see that for every hour of charm, you are taking out a high-interest loan against your energy reserves. And now as an adult, the bill is coming due. Now let's look at how this plays out in the adult world. Because if childhood was the training ground for ignoring your needs, adulthood is the battlefield where you get injured. The modern workplace is, quite literally, designed to destroy the peace of the homebody. Consider the open-plan office. From an architectural standpoint, it saves money. From a psychological standpoint, for someone with high sensory processing sensitivity, it is a torture chamber. There are no walls. There is no visual privacy. You can hear the sales team on the phone 3 rows over. You can smell someone's lunch. You can see the constant movement in your peripheral vision. For your brain, that high-definition processor we talked about earlier, this is a nightmare. You aren't just doing your spreadsheet, you are actively filtering out 1,000 competing stimuli every second. This creates a state of chronic, low-level fight or flight. Your cortisol levels spike and stay elevated all day. So by 5 odds p.m., you aren't just tired from work. You are sensory shattered. You are in a state of cognitive depletion. Then comes the social pressure, the happy hour, the team building. The expectation that if you are a team player, you will want to socialize after hours. Here's the cruel irony. You might be the most productive person on the team. You might be the deep thinker who solves the complex problems. But because you decline the drinks, because you eat lunch alone to recharge, you are labeled aloof or not a culture fit. You find yourself passed over for promotions not because you lack skill, but because you lack visibility. And so you force yourself to go. You drag your exhausted body to the bar. You shout over the music. You nod and smile. And the next day, you are even more depleted, creating a cycle of burnout that feels impossible to escape. And then there is love. Modern dating has been gamified and marketed as a continuous adventure. Look at any dating app profile. What do you see? I love travel. Looking for a partner in crime. Always up for an adventure. Photos of hiking, skydiving, festivals. We have conflated love with activity. We have been sold a narrative that a relationship is defined by what you do together outside the house, rather than who you are together inside it. If you are a person who loves home, this creates a profound insecurity. You worry that you are boring. You meet someone, you like them, but the anxiety sets in immediately. Can I keep up? Will they leave me if I just want to stay in this weekend? You might find yourself dating an extrovert, which can be a beautiful balance, but often starts as a source of friction. They view the weekend as a blank canvas to be filled with events. You view the weekend as a sanctuary to be protected from events. They say, let's go to the farmer's market, then meet friends for brunch, then maybe catch a movie. You hear, let's run a marathon. So you compromise. You always compromise. You go along. You suppress your need for stillness because you don't want to be the buzzkill. You don't want to be the reason they didn't have fun. But resentment is a quiet builder. It stacks up brick by brick. Every time you say yes when your body is screaming no, you are betraying yourself. Eventually, you snap. You withdraw emotionally, you become irritable, or you simply burn out and break up telling yourself, I'm just better off alone. You convince yourself that you are unlovable because you cannot perform the role of the adventurous partner. You fail to see that your capacity for stillness, for listening, for creating a safe harbor is a gift that the right person is actually starving for. This brings us to the core of the struggle. It isn't just the outside world pressuring you. The call is coming from inside the house. This is the war of should. It's Saturday morning, the sun is shining, you have 2 days of freedom. Your body wants to do absolutely nothing. It wants to put on soft clothes, make coffee, and sit in a specific chair for 3 hours. It wants to potter around the kitchen. It wants to nap. But then the voice starts. The voice says, it's a beautiful day. You shouldn't waste it. The voice says, look at Instagram. Everyone else is at the beach. Everyone else is living. The voice says, you are wasting your youth. You are turning into a hermit. You are boring. This is the internalized extrovert ideal. Even though you know what makes you happy, you have been conditioned to believe that your form of happiness is inferior. You judge your downtime by the standards of uptime. This creates a specific, gnawing anxiety. The anxiety of the unused weekend. You feel guilty for resting. You feel like productivity, even social productivity, is the rent you pay for existing. If you aren't doing, you aren't worthy. So you are caught in a painful trap. If you go out, you are exhausted and resentful. If you stay home, you are guilty and anxious. You are never fully present in either scenario. When you are out, you wish you were home. When you are home, you worry you should be out. This conflict splits you in half. It prevents you from actually enjoying the solitude you fought so hard to get. You sit on the couch, but you don't relax. You doom scroll, you numb out. You aren't engaging in restorative solitude. You are engaging in avoidant solitude. You are hiding rather than healing. Why is this so hard? Why can't we just own it? Because deep down, we are terrified of the label. Laziness. We live in a capitalist, productivity-obsessed culture where doing nothing is viewed as a moral failing. We equate movement with progress. If you aren't moving, you must be stagnant. But let's look at that word, lazy. Laziness is a refusal to do what needs to be done. Rest is the preparation to do what needs to be done. The homebody isn't lazy, their brain is working furiously. It is processing emotions, it is connecting dots, it is recovering from the sensory assault of the week. But because this work is invisible, because it happens in silence, inside the skull, behind a closed door, it is undervalued. And because the world undervalues it, you undervalue it. You treat your need for home like a dirty secret. You apologize for it. You treat your battery like a defect. We need to stop right here. We need to stop the shame spiral. If you take nothing else from this video, hear this. Your biology is not a character flaw. The way you feel, the exhaustion after socializing, the profound need for the door to be locked, that is not a symptom of illness. That is a system working exactly as it was designed. You are not broken because you can't handle loud noises for 6 hours. You are a high-performance instrument that requires a specific environment to function. You wouldn't drive a Formula One car off-road and then blame the car for breaking down. You wouldn't take an orchid and put it in the desert and blame it for wilting. So why do you do this to yourself? We need to validate the pain of this experience without minimizing it. It is painful to feel out of step with the world. It is lonely to feel like the only person who wants to leave the party at 9 p.m. It is hard to be the one who says no. But the pain doesn't come from your nature. The pain comes from your resistance to your nature. The pain comes from trying to shove a square peg into a round hole for 20 years and wondering why your hands are bleeding. It is time to stop trying to be the extrovert you think you should be and start meeting the introvert you actually are. It is time to look at the home not as a place of hiding, but as a place of power. Because here is the truth that the loud world doesn't want you to know. Solitude is a superpower, but only if you stop fighting it. Here is part 3 of 3. This final section focuses on the pivot, moving from understanding why you are this way to owning it. It covers the reframing of solitude, the practical transfer of ownership, boundaries, and the healing orientation. It is time to reframe the narrative. We need to take the story you've been telling yourself, I'm boring, I'm lazy, I'm antisocial, and flip it on its head to reveal what is actually happening. We need to move from the fear of missing out, FOMO, to the joy of missing out, JOMO. FOMO is a symptom of a scarcity mindset. It is the belief that the good stuff is a limited resource and it is happening somewhere else. It is the belief that if you aren't there to witness it, you have lost something. But JOMO is the delicious, secret satisfaction of knowing that the world is spinning madly out there and you are choosing not to spin with it. It is the realization that missing out on the noise is actually tuning in to the signal. When you stay home, you aren't saying no to life. You're saying yes to a different kind of life. A life of intimacy, a life of comfort, a life where you have the bandwidth to actually process your emotions rather than just reacting to them. Think about the quality of your attention. When you are overstimulated, your attention is shallow. You are skimming the surface of 20 different conversations. You are present, but you are thin. But when you are home, in your sanctuary, your attention deepens. You can read a sentence and actually understand it. You can listen to a piece of music and hear every instrument. You can have a conversation with your partner that goes on for 3 hours and solves a problem that has been plaguing you for months. You are prioritizing depth over breadth. The world tells you that a big life is measured by the number of people you know, the number of countries you visit, the number of parties you attend. But that is an extrovert's metric. For you, a big life is measured by the depth of your thoughts, the richness of your inner world, the quality of your few close relationships, and the peace in your chest. That is not a consolation prize. That is a different, valid, and beautiful currency. We also need to reframe the concept of safety. The adventurous world treats safety like a dirty word. They equate it with stagnation. Life begins at the end of your comfort zone, they say. But for the high sensitivity person, safety is not stagnation. Safety is the precondition for growth. You cannot blossom when you are in a constant state of fight or flight. You cannot be creative when your nervous system is fried. You cannot be kind when you are exhausted. Your home is your exoskeleton. It provides the structure that allows your soft internal self to expand. The great writers, the great thinkers, the inventors, they didn't create because they were constantly pushing themselves into discomfort. They created because they built a fortress of solitude where their minds were safe enough to wander. Your home is your laboratory. It is where you become you. So how do we move from understanding this to living it? How do we transfer the responsibility from the past, where we felt guilty, to the present, where we feel empowered? It starts with the language we use. It starts with stopping the apology. Think about how you decline invitations. I'm so sorry, I can't make it. I have a headache. I'm really sorry something came up. Maybe next time, so sorry. You are apologizing for your needs. You are treating your boundary like an offense. The ownership shift happens when you stop offering excuses and start offering truth, even if that truth is soft. You don't have to be brutal. You don't have to say, I don't want to see you. But you can say, I've had a long week and I need to recharge tonight. I'm taking a quiet weekend to myself. I'm staying in tonight, but I'd love to see you next week when I have more energy. Notice the difference? There is no lie. There is no shame. You are stating your need as a fact, not a failure. I need to recharge. That is a complete sentence. It establishes a boundary that honors your biology. And here is the secret. People respect boundaries that are stated with conviction. When you stop feeling guilty about staying home, your friends stop pressuring you. They accept it as part of who you are. Oh, she's having a quiet night. That's her thing. Ownership also means curating your environment. If home is your sanctuary, treat it like one. This is why homebodies are often obsessed with interior design, with lighting, with coziness, or hygge as the Danish call it. This isn't superficial materialism, it is environmental psychology. You're building a habitat that supports your nervous system, the blanket that has the right weight, the lamp that gives the warm, amber light instead of the harsh blue light, the chair that holds you correctly, the silence. These are the tools of your trade. They are the infrastructure of your well-being. Stop feeling guilty for spending money on your home. You live there. It is the vessel that holds your life. Investing in your space is investing in your mental health. But ownership also means recognizing the trap of too much comfort. We must be honest here. There is a fine line between solitude and isolation. Solitude is restorative. It fills you up. Isolation is depleting. It empties you out. The goal is not to sever all ties with the human race and become a recluse. The goal is to interact with the world on your own terms. This brings us to the healing orientation. Healing doesn't mean fixing your introversion so you can finally enjoy loud parties. That is not healing, that is masking. Healing means conscious scheduling. It means looking at your calendar as an energy budget. You have a limited amount of currency to spend each week. If you have a big work presentation on Thursday, you do not schedule a dinner on Wednesday. You schedule a night of silence. You bank your energy. It means recognizing the signs of sensory overload before you crash. When you start to feel that specific irritability, when sounds start to feel like physical blows, when you can't focus, you don't push through. You intervene. You say, I need 20 minutes. You go to a dark room, you put on noise-canceling headphones, you regulate. Healing means giving yourself permission to leave the party early. The Irish exit is not rude. It is a survival strategy. You can show up, give your love, give your energy, and then leave before you are depleted. You leave while you still like people. It also means finding low dopamine socializing. You don't have to choose between alone and club. There is a middle ground. A walk in the park with one friend, a coffee in a quiet cafe, a movie night at home with your partner. Parallel play, where you are in the same room as someone you love, but you are both doing your own thing, reading or working, in companionable silence. This is how you maintain relationships without burning out. You bring people into your world instead of always trying to survive in theirs. One of the most powerful things you can do is ask your inner child, that kid who was told to speak up, what they need right now. And you might hear, I just want to be left alone without anyone being mad at me. And slowly, very slowly, you begin to give that to yourself. You give yourself the gift of guilt-free solitude. And what happens when you finally embrace this? When you stop fighting your nature and start honoring it, you become a person of immense stability. In a chaotic, screaming, fast-moving world, you become the calm center. Your home becomes a gathering place for the people you love, a refuge not just for you, but for them. They come to you when they are tired. They come to you when they need to escape the noise. You cultivate a rich inner garden, hobbies, interests, knowledge, dreams, that makes you incredibly interesting. Precisely because you aren't simply echoing the noise of the crowd. You have original thoughts because you have given yourself the time to think them. You begin to realize that the boring life is actually the good life. The simple routine, the coffee in the morning silence, the way the light hits the floorboards in the afternoon, the feeling of fresh sheets, the shared silence with a partner who understands you, the joy of a canceled plan. These aren't consolation prizes for people who couldn't make it in the fast lane. These are the prizes. These are the moments where life is actually lived, tasted, and felt. You inherit a life where you are no longer running a race you didn't sign up for. You stop measuring your worth by how busy you are. You stop confusing exhaustion with importance. You realize that you don't need to go to the other side of the world to find wonder. You can find it in the quiet corner of your own room, in the pages of a book, in the stillness of your own mind. No one is coming to give you a permission slip to stay home. The world will always want more of your time, more of your attention, more of your energy. The world is a hungry machine. You are the one who has to reach for the lock. You are the one who has to turn the deadbolt. You have to look at the younger version of yourself, the one who felt weird for wanting to leave the birthday party, the one who hid in the library, and say, "You were right. You were right to protect your peace. You were right to value your quiet. You were right to look inward when everyone else was looking out." This is the integration. It is the moment you stop looking at your home as a fortress to hide behind and start seeing it as the soil from which you grow. It is not an escape from reality, it is the construction of a reality that fits you. So, if you are watching this from the comfort of your own sofa, perhaps under a blanket, with no plans to go anywhere, stay there. Don't let the guilt in. The world will be there tomorrow. The noise isn't going anywhere, but this peace, this silence, this is yours to keep. You are not missing out. You are right where you belong. You are finally home.